Shahidul Islam, BIMSTEC Secretary General, Ambassador P.S. Raghavan, Chairman, National Security Advisory Board, and Dr. Virander K. Paul, Joint Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, to please take their seats on the dais. May now request Dr. Gupta to present an Angvastra to all our distinguished guests. Ambassador Islam. And Dr. Paul. Dr. Arvind Gupta, presently Director, Vivekananda International Foundation, has earlier held positions of Deputy National Security Advisor, Secretary, National Security Council Secretariat, and Joint Secretary, NSCS, on deputation from Ministry of External Affairs. He's held wide-ranging international engagements in official capacity, while also having served in Indian diplomatic missions in Moscow, London, and Ankara. A prolific writer, he has written 4 books and co-edited several. His latest book, How India Manages Its National Security, was published in 2018. May I now request Dr. Gupta to deliver the welcome address.
Namaskar. Ambassador P.S. Raghavan, Chairman, National Security Advisory Board, Excellency Shahidul Islam, Secretary General, BIMSTEC, Ambassador Virander Paul, Joint Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs. He deals with BIMSTEC and SAARC matters. Ambassadors and High Commissioners and diplomats of BIMSTEC countries, distinguished delegates from BIMSTEC countries, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Vivekananda International Foundation, I would like to heartily welcome you to the second edition of the BIMSTEC Think Tank's Dialogue on Regional Security. I am thankful to Ambassador Raghavan, Chairman of the NSAB, Secretary General BIMSTEC, Mr. Excellency Shahidul Islam, Ambassador Virander Paul, Joint Secretary, MEA, for being here with us today. I would also like to thank Deputy NSA Ambassador Pankaj Saran and his team at the National Security Council Secretariat for constantly encouraging and supporting the think tank dialogue on regional security. I am grateful to BIMSTEC Secretariat and the Indian missions for their cooperation in organizing this conference. I am also grateful for the messages of support and encouragement received from Shri Ajit Doval, National Security Advisor, Government of India, and Secretary General of BIMSTEC. Friends, the Bay of Bengal is a distinctive region situated between the Himalayas and the waters of the Bay of Bengal itself. The destiny of this vast region, accounting for 1.6 billion people, nearly 22% of the world's population, has been linked by shared geography, history, and culture. At one point of time, this was a flourishing region which served as a maritime highway between India and China. The rise and decline of the Bay of Bengal is a story by itself, which has been admirably recounted by the author Sunil Amrit in his wonderful book on the Bay. It is time that the regional connectivity, which had been lost, should be restored now. 1 year ago, we had met at the same venue to initiate discussions on regional security issues faced by member countries. Intensive discussions were held on that occasion and exhaustive outcome document was produced. The VIF is privileged to have the opportunity to host this year's dialogue, which builds on last year's discussions. Response this year has been even more enthusiastic, and thank you for that. In today's conference, we are focusing on the impact of the internet and social media on terrorism and radicalization, maritime domain awareness, environment and climate change, capacity building within BIMSTEC countries, and countering cybersecurity threats. The importance of artificial intelligence and big data analytics in analyzing huge amount of data that is being generated, and how this can be used to deal with modern security challenges cannot be overstated. This is particularly true in the field of cybersecurity and maritime domain awareness. BIMSTEC countries need to develop capacities in this area urgently. Friends, following the fourth summit of BIMSTEC leaders in Kathmandu, Nepal last year, a number of important meetings and dialogues have already been held. The third meeting of the security chiefs was held in Bangkok in March 2019. The second meeting of the Track 1.5 security dialogue was held in Bangladesh in July. Last year, a workshop on cybersecurity had developed a roadmap for cooperation amongst BIMSTEC countries on cybersecurity. The first ever BIMSTEC conclave of ports was held at Visakhapatnam earlier this month. A coastal security workshop for BIMSTEC countries was held in Delhi a few days ago. These initiatives show that BIMSTEC countries attach a great deal of importance to develop cooperation in connectivity as well as on security issues. The present conference, which involves experts from different countries at the Track 2 level, would supplement the ongoing efforts to strengthen BIMSTEC security dialogue. A number of important recommendations were made in the outcome document of the first meeting of the BIMSTEC think tanks dialogue on regional security. The importance of intelligence and information sharing in real time, the need for rule-based maritime order in the Bay of Bengal, the incorporation of the concept of SAGAR, that is security and growth for all in the region, was as suggested by Prime Minister Modi in maritime security initiatives in the Bay of Bengal region was emphasized. The urgency to build institutional capacity amongst BIMSTEC countries to deal with the threat of transnational crime was also highlighted. Taking note of the threats to the region from climate change, the meeting reviewed BIMSTEC preparedness and resilience towards disaster management and suggested that BIMSTEC Weather and Climate Center at Noida, India should be renamed as BIMSTEC Disaster Management and Climate Change Center to focus on research and development on climate change, disaster management, and associated areas. The participants strongly suggested that the capacity of BIMSTEC Secretariat should be enhanced to facilitate research on security issues. So these are some of the recommendations which emerged from last year's conference. I'm confident that this conference will contribute towards improving our understanding of common security challenges faced by our countries and generate momentum for the continuation and deepening of security dialogue amongst member countries. Actually, these dialogues are not only important for generating specific recommendations, but I think this habit of talking with each other on issues of common concern is something that needs to be inculcated and is very important. The world is changing very fast. The world is becoming multipolar. The importance of region is growing. Regionalization of BIMSTEC, I think, is beginning to happen. And in fact, today we are going to release a book later, which describes the Bay of Bengal as a sea of collective destiny. So I think this new concepts which are coming up, which promote the regionalization of Bay, are very important. And such dialogues, I think, will play an important role in generating that feeling of a common destiny. And thank you very much for being here today. And now we'll begin our session.
Thank you so much, sir. Ambassador Shahidul Islam took up the position of the Secretary General of BIMSTEC on 21st September 2017. A senior career diplomat, Ambassador Shahidul Islam has also served as Bangladesh Ambassador to France, permanent representative to UNESCO, while being concurrently accredited ambassador to Romania, Algeria, Ivory Coast, and Cameroon, with residence in France. He has also been Bangladesh ambassador to South Korea, deputy head of mission in Washington, D.C., and held other diplomatic portfolios in Bangladesh, permanent mission to the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, and he's also served in Kolkata, India. May I now request the BIMSTEC Secretary General to deliver the special address.
Ambassador P.S. Raghavan, Chairman, National Security Advisory Board, India. Dr. Arvind Gupta, Director, Vivekananda International Foundation, India. Dr. Virander K. Paul, Joint Secretary, BIMSTEC. Senior officials from the Government of India present today. Distinguished participants from the BIMSTEC member states, including Washika Aisha Khan MP from Bangladesh. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. At the outset, let me express my sincere thanks to the Vivekananda International Foundation and Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, for inviting me to the second dialogue of BIMSTEC think tanks on regional security. Counterterrorism and transnational crime is one of the most vibrant sectors of BIMSTEC's cooperation. The rapid expansion of activities of this sector is due to the emergence of new security threats and the need to develop common narrative towards these threats. With the establishment of mechanisms like annual meeting of the National Security Chiefs, Home Ministers meeting, Joint Working Group on CTTC and its 6 subgroups, working groups and experts groups, a robust mechanism has been put in place to deal with the counterterrorism and transnational crime cooperation among the member states. These forums are holding regular meetings to develop common approach to wide range of emerging security threats facing the region and lay down legal framework for cooperation. The Transnational Organized Crime and BIMSTEC Convention on Cooperation in Combating International Terrorism, Transnational Organized Crime, and Illicit Drug Trafficking was signed on 11 December 2009. The convention is awaiting ratification. The text of the BIMSTEC Convention on Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters has been finalized, and all the member states have conveyed that they have completed their internal formalities to sign it. We are hoping that this will be signed soon. The Joint Working Group on CTTC is currently negotiating 3 other conventions, namely BIMSTEC Convention on Extradition, BIMSTEC Convention on Transfer of Sentenced Persons, and BIMSTEC Convention Against Trafficking in Persons. Think tanks have an important role to play in CTTC cooperation as they work as interface between common people and the governments. The first meeting of the National Security Chiefs held in New Delhi, India on 21st March 2017 decided to establish a Track 1.5 BIMSTEC Security Dialogue Forum to promote and encourage security dialogue among BIMSTEC strategic community. The first 1.5 BIMSTEC Security Dialogue Forum was hosted by Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis, India on 22nd September 2017. The second Track 1.5 BIMSTEC Security Dialogue Forum was hosted by Bangladesh Institute for International and Strategic Studies in Bangladesh on 30 to 31 July 2019. The Track 1.5 BIMSTEC Security Dialogue has come up with a number of recommendations which were subsequently used in the work of core mechanisms of CTT sector. At the second meeting of the National Security Chiefs held in Dhaka on 28 March 2018, India proposed to have a workshop of think tanks for deliberation on various research works, studies, and scholarships that can be undertaken in security and strategic matters. Following that proposal, the Vivekananda International Foundation hosted the first dialogue of BIMSTEC think tanks on regional security on 13 to 14 November 2018, which deliberated on 4 thematic areas of CTTC cooperation, namely threat of terrorism, radicalization, and response by BIMSTEC countries, maritime security, transnational crime, and disaster management. The third meeting of the BIMSTEC National Security Chiefs held in Bangkok on 21st March 2019 welcomed the recommendations of the first dialogue of BIMSTEC think tanks on regional security and agreed to make it an annual event. It is heartening to see that the Vivekananda International Foundation has once again come forward to organize the second dialogue of BIMSTEC think tanks on regional security within a very short time. The topics selected for the second dialogue are relevant to contemporary security threats facing the region. I will very briefly review what BIMSTEC is doing and planning to do in the near future on these issues. The first meeting of the BIMSTEC subgroup on countering radicalization and terrorism, held in India on 11 June 2019, emphasized community-based approaches involving family members, religious leaders, and adopting multi-agency approach to deal with countering radicalization and terrorism. While the meeting emphasized the need for keeping sharp watch on social media use, it also emphasized the use of internet for counter-radicalization measures among the member states, especially through real-time sharing of information using digital platform, sharing counterterrorism best practices among the member states, and liberal sharing of counterterrorism metadata. Relevant recommendations from today's dialogue may feed into the future deliberations of the subgroup on countering radicalization and terrorism. The first meeting of the BIMSTEC National Security Chiefs held in New Delhi on 21st March 2017 emphasized the importance of maritime security in view of the overwhelming significance of the Bay of Bengal for the well-being, prosperity, security, and socio-economic development in the BIMSTEC member states. The meeting decided to prepare a comprehensive plan of action to enhance maritime security cooperation among member states. An ad hoc working group on maritime security has been constituted by the BIMSTEC member states to discuss maritime security cooperation. The first BIMSTEC workshop on coastal security, which was held in New Delhi on 20 to 22 November 2019, also discussed ideas on developing common maritime security architecture for BIMSTEC. I am hopeful the ideas emanating from the coastal security workshop and from this dialogue will facilitate the deliberations of the ad hoc working group on maritime security. During the fourth BIMSTEC summit, the leaders expressed serious concerns over environmental degradation, adverse impact of climate change, and global warming on the fragile Himalayan and mountain ecosystems and their interlinkages with the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean, and resolved to strengthen cooperation to protect and preserve the environment to address the adverse impact of climate change on the lives and livelihoods of our peoples. The leaders also underscored the necessity of making concrete efforts to ensure the conservation of mountain ecosystems, including their biodiversity, in order to support sustainable development. Various intergovernmental expert groups which have been formed on these subject matters by the 4th BIMSTEC Summit will soon deliberate on developing action plan on respective domain. Member states will also be deliberating on the necessity and various other aspects of establishing a Himalayan Science Council. The first meeting of the BIMSTEC National Security Chiefs noted with concern the emerging trends in cyberspace which encourage online radicalization, cybercrime, and threat to the critical information sectors of the economy. The meeting decided to deepen cooperation among the respective cyber institutions to strengthen cybersecurity. The meeting agreed to a joint forum to strengthen cybersecurity among the BIMSTEC member states. The first BIMSTEC workshop on regional cybersecurity cooperation held in New Delhi in December 2018 made a number of recommendations on developing collaboration among the BIMSTEC member states on the area of cybersecurity. The third meeting of the BIMSTEC National Security Chiefs, while considering the recommendations of the workshop, agreed to constitute an expert group to formulate an action plan to deal with cybersecurity in the BIMSTEC region. The recommendations of the workshop and those from this dialogue would be able to feed into the first meeting of the expert group to be held soon. I was pleasantly surprised to see that institutional restructuring of BIMSTEC has been chosen as a topic of this dialogue. Given this opportunity, I'm very happy to report to you that the 4th BIMSTEC Summit held in Kathmandu in August 2018 took a number of important decisions to rationalize and consolidate BIMSTEC's operational modalities and institutional structure, including drafting of BIMSTEC Charter, establishment of BIMSTEC Development Fund, and review and rationalize the 14 sectors of cooperation to bring focus in BIMSTEC's work. BIMSTEC member states and the BIMSTEC Secretariat have initiated measures towards fulfillment of these directives with a view to get the endorsement of the leaders during the 5th BIMSTEC Summit to be held in Colombo. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, let me express my appreciation for the contribution of India, the lead country of CTTC cooperation, in fostering cooperation under the CTTC sector and also for organizing this dialogue. I am hopeful that the dialogue will again come out with some practical recommendations and common perspectives on the themes relevant with the present-day security situations prevailing in the region. I wish the dialogue a success. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your warm and enlightening words. Your remarks will strengthen the spirit of the two-day dialogue. Dr. Virander Paul, prior to his present assignment as Joint Secretary with the portfolios of BIMSTEC, SAARC, and Nalanda in the Ministry of External Affairs, was Joint Secretary at the Foreign Service Institute in New Delhi. He's earlier served as Deputy Permanent Representative of India to the UN in Geneva, Deputy High Commissioner of India in London, Minister Press at the Indian Embassy in Washington, D.C., and Director in the Prime Minister's Office from 2007 to 2010. He's also held diplomatic positions in Indian missions in Almaty, Vladivostok, Rome, St. Petersburg, and Moscow. He holds a medical degree from the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. May I now request Dr. Paul to deliver the keynote address.
Good morning, everyone. Dr. Arvind Gupta, Director of VIF, Secretary General of BIMSTEC, Ambassador Islam, Ambassador Raghavan, the chairman of NASB, Excellencies, my senior former colleagues, great to see you here, sir, today. Old friends and new ladies and gentlemen. To begin with, I would like to thank Dr. Arvind Gupta for asking me to come and join this event and also to speak. I would like to also recognize the role and hard work of all those from various organizations, of all those who have been associated with putting together this important event. I bring you all greetings and best wishes from the Ministry of External Affairs. A word of special thanks to our participants from the fellow BIMSTEC countries to attend this think tanks event, for making time to be here in India. I'm sure that when you come back, you'll be happier, you'll be more intellectually charged and more intellectually stimulated. From the remarks made by Director Dr. Gupta and also Ambassador Islam, there is one basic point that has come out, and this is that even if we have the best of bilateral relations with each other in the region, but the bilateral equations alone are not enough. From the various opportunities we have, from the various challenges that we face, we do need a shared framework and a shared platform to deal with shared opportunities and shared challenges, and we believe that BIMSTEC, this organization, this initiative is serving us well. From the level of scholarship that I see from here in the room, I think it goes without saying that we are all fully aware of India's neighborhood first, look east policy, act east policy, the doctrine of security and growth for all in the region, SAGAR, as well as India's vision for a secure and more inclusive Indo-Pacific. Much has already been said on the importance of BIMSTEC and what we seek to do, but I would like to raise a few basic questions. They might sound very fundamental, very basic, but I think we need to focus on them as part of any intellectual activity aimed at the strengthening of BIMSTEC. And today, the thrust, of course, is on regional security. And the questions that I would like to raise are, as I said, very basic. What brings us together? What is BIMSTEC all about? What do we stand for? What is BIMSTEC's place in the world? What is that BIMSTEC brings to the table globally? Where do we stand now? And where are we headed? Are we prepared enough to jointly achieve what we seek to achieve jointly? Now, these are some of the broader questions that we are addressing each and every single day, as especially those who are dealing with BIMSTEC, both the present life and also the history of BIMSTEC. As we go along working on these questions, we are well guided by our leaders, the leadership at the highest political level, through their announcements and declarations made at various BIMSTEC summits. I will not repeat that because Dr. Gupta and Ambassador Islam have already mentioned those, but I would like to highlight one point that was also very clearly mentioned and elaborated by Ambassador Islam. In March this year in Bangkok, our national security chiefs had a meeting, and it was just days before yet another large-scale tragic terrorist strike launched from Pakistan, and it is easily understandable that the national security chiefs decided what they decided, and it was basically that there is a strong need to step up the counterterrorism cooperation through various means and methods, whether it's capacity building or employment of new counterterrorism technologies, intelligence sharing, training, R&D, etc., etc., and the urgency of doing I think is very understandable, because the environment in which the BIMSTEC countries live, clearly, the threat of terrorism is very, very high. What the government authorities are in the process of doing what best can be done. It would be useful if the civil society, think tanks, educational institutions also come up with new ideas, new suggestions in terms of how they can play a positive role in this direction. Maritime security and maritime domain awareness was prominently mentioned a while ago, and we can see the list of the agenda items for these discussions in the days to come. I would like to come back to the point that I raised, that what is it that brings us closer together? The name BIMSTEC very clearly suggests that it is the Bay of Bengal. And for a moment, if we visualize the geography, the territory of BIMSTEC, our national boundaries, the region, the economies, and the traditions of interaction and interdependence between countries in this region, the shared vulnerabilities, the shared opportunities, it's very clear that keeping the shores and waters of the Bay of Bengal is very important, and there lies the importance also of the intellectual activity, as we say, the think tanking, and that's we are going to have in these 2-3 days. For the transnational nature of the maritime domain, India has always emphasized collaboration and inclusion when we deal with these issues, whether maritime security, domain awareness, and general maritime concerns and threats. We are at the same time very acutely mindful of that maritime security in our region is vital for judicious and sustainable use of maritime resources. I would like to also mention about the coastal security workshop that was held last week here in Delhi, and we were very happy to have coastal security experts from all BIMSTEC countries participating in discussions here in Delhi, and also their visit to the Information Sharing Center of IOR in Gurgaon. They were shown, and there was a good level of debate and discussion on the importance of information sharing, whether it was collection of information on maritime activities, both legitimate and otherwise, and the various technologies, the sensor technologies used to collect information, the integration of all that information into something more action-oriented and meaningful, the analysis of data, and to spot trends and anomalies in the data that could be used to make our region the more secure. The fundamental point that came out very clear is that information sharing is critical. Information sharing is critical. It's central to shared awareness. A few words on blue economy. It is something which we think that it is futuristic, and increasingly we realize that it is not as futuristic as one may think. At the 4th BIMSTEC summit in Kathmandu in August 2018, our Prime Minister prominently highlighted, he mentioned that blue economy is something which is very important to all BIMSTEC economies, and what what blue economy is all about. At an intuitive level, we all know what it is. It's basically sustainable management of ocean and ocean resources, and everything to do with it. Everything dealing with resources, whether natural or marine life, or shipping, or ecology, or trade, investment, security, diplomacy, and the rest of it. You would also recall that the Prime Minister had mentioned about blue economy during his visits to Seychelles and Mauritius in 2015, and it's not surprising that at the national level we are acting on it. In the budget speech this year, the importance of ocean economy, in the larger economy of the country and also the region, it was highlighted. And the salience of blue economy is, of course, progressively increasing, not just in our region, but globally. And we need more joint work, both in the governments, of course, which at various levels, at various layers, it is happening. But it would be useful if the think tank community, the strategic community also work in this direction to have new thoughts on more predictable action and put some structure as we go along. There are many other security-related issues which I may not go into detail because in the times to come, in the hours or the coming days, it will be discussed in great detail. But I'll just highlight cyber security, cyber crime, digital forensics, space security, and many other dimensions of security which are all relevant to all countries of the BIMSTEC region. Before I conclude, I would like to just say, it's a statement which is quite popular in the medical world, when we train doctors. And everything that is applied in the world of medicine, it is all about diagnosis and management. And management is basically management of problems. And the statement is that the eyes don't see what the mind doesn't know. And it's basically the importance of knowing. To know is very important. And the strategic community, the think tanks from all the BIMSTEC countries, I think it's important that we continue to create new knowledge aimed at the larger agreed objectives of strengthening the BIMSTEC structure and functions in every possible way. And now it's not just the responsibility of the think tanks to create new knowledge. The governments, the ministries in various countries, both the foreign offices and also other ministries are dealing with various areas of cooperation. They are also at the same time doing a lot of strategic thinking and planning, but inputs from the strategic communities are always welcome and useful in various ways. And I hope that the various thematic meetings and that you're going to have, you will come up with more strategic, more sophisticated ideas towards possible solutions to various shared threats and challenges that we face in our region with long-term horizons in mind. Our instinctive understanding about each other, I think, is something which goes a long way in making faster progress. And as I earlier said, that BIMSTEC, the process, the action that we are taking as part of this process is serving us well. On behalf of the Ministry of External Affairs, I wish you all the very best as you debate, as you discuss, as you explore, and make recommendations and suggestions as you go along today and the next 2 days or so. I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your support and encouragement. We will make a special note of all the issues you've flagged. Ambassador P.S. Raghavan is currently the chairman of India's National Security Advisory Board, an independent advisory body on security and strategic issues. A veteran diplomat with a diplomatic career spanning almost 4 decades, Ambassador Raghavan has been India's ambassador to Russia, Czech Republic, and Ireland, and held other diplomatic positions in USSR, UK, Poland, South Africa, and Vietnam. He has also headed the Development Partnership Administration in Ministry of External Affairs, which coordinates India's economic partnership with developing countries. May I now request Ambassador Raghavan to deliver the inaugural address.
Thank you. Dr. Arvind Gupta, Director of VIF, Ambassador Shahidul Islam, the Secretary General of BIMSTEC, Ambassador Dr. Virander Paul, distinguished delegates from BIMSTEC countries, BIMSTEC think tanks, my senior colleagues, Ambassador Sibyl, Ambassador Rajagopalan, Ambassador Vadhva, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to be here with you for this second meeting of the BIMSTEC think tank dialogue on regional security. I think the think tank conference, and Ambassador Islam said this, is a very valuable addition to the BIMSTEC dialogue, since it provides intellectual inputs into the deliberations of our BIMSTEC leaders. We have heard today already from all our speakers the manner in which BIMSTEC has reinvigorated itself in recent years through multiple dialogue mechanisms at the summit level, at other levels, at track 1, track 1.5, track 2 levels. Already has an impressive list of agreements, an impressive list of the range of subjects covered. Most recently, of course, we had a very interesting conclave of ports, which was held earlier this month, which came up with, again, new ideas on tourism development and industrial development. Coastal security workshop has been mentioned, and of course we have had the summit, we've had the national security chiefs meetings. Now all of this, again, it's been said by all three speakers that the statistics of BIMSTEC are quite impressive. Among other things, it brings together 1.67 billion people with an impressive combined GDP of $3.71 trillion. But basically its challenge is to make the collective impact of the organization much more than the sum of its individual parts. I think this is the potential that the Kathmandu summit recognized, and it also took the decision to strengthen the institutional mechanisms of BIMSTEC. I agree with Ambassador Islam that it's very appropriate that you have a session on this subject in order to make recommendations for strengthening the institutional mechanisms of BIMSTEC. Both Dr. Arvind Gupta and Dr. Paul have mentioned how BIMSTEC fits into India's foreign policy priorities of neighborhood first and Act East, and of course cyber. It is also a vehicle for integrating the northeast of our country with the economy of the rest of the country through our neighboring countries. So it's natural, therefore, that we give importance to the economic potential of BIMSTEC, as well as the security challenges that it faces in achieving peaceful cooperation. All our countries are engaged in discussions on an Indo-Pacific security architecture, which would ensure respect for sovereignty and independence of all states, large and small, peaceful resolution of disputes, free trade and investment, and freedom of navigation and overflight. Countries of the Indo-Pacific region need to pursue these ideals in a collaborative, non-confrontational manner. As our Prime Minister said at the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore in June last year, this approach, of course, is also incorporated into the ASEAN's outlook on the Indo-Pacific, which was issued earlier this year. BIMSTEC, I think, can show the way for this approach. A cooperative approach in the Indo-Pacific requires reconciliation of multiple interests and aspirations. This process can be helped by confidence-building measures through cooperation in areas that are recognized by all of us as important. This was the spirit of our Prime Minister's approach, our Prime Minister's initiative at the recent East Asia Summit on the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative. He identified the possibility of collaborative work in a number of areas to safeguard the oceans, to enhance maritime security, to preserve maritime resources, share resources fairly, reduce disaster risk, enhance science and technology cooperation, and promote mutually beneficial trade and maritime transport. He had suggested that one or two countries could take the lead in coordinating cooperation in each of these verticals. India itself offered to take the lead in maritime security and in disaster risk reduction. As you probably know, India will be hosting a maritime security workshop with Australia and Indonesia in February 2020. While this was a suggestion made at the East Asia Summit for the Indo-Pacific region as a whole, I think it may be relevant for BIMSTEC to take up some of these areas of integration within this organization, so that you can sort of create models which can be replicated in the larger Indo-Pacific region. I say this because BIMSTEC is actually an organization of a very strategically important very strategically important enclave of the Indo-Pacific. And therefore, you know, it can be the laboratory for creation of models which can have wider applicability in the region. I want to throw out another idea for your consideration, which I think is relevant particularly for a think tank or a group of think tanks which are involved in strategic and security issues. This idea has figured in a few informal discussions in think tanks, which is you could consider whether BIMSTEC itself could expand to include Indonesia as part of the organization. Geographically speaking, it is really a part of BIMSTEC. BIMSTEC is the Bay of Bengal is the strategic funnel, if you like, between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, and Indonesia is, I think, at the mouth of that funnel. It's something that I think merits discussion at a track 2 level before you can take it up at other levels in the organization. Ambassador Islam has mentioned cyber security as an important focus of BIMSTEC's deliberation. In this context, I would like to draw your attention to two issues which are very major in our countries. One is a shortage of skilled personnel in cyber security across our region, in all sectors of our economies. We in India face the immediate need to train at least 1 million cybersecurity professionals within the next 1 year. This means that we need trainers, training modules, and national accreditation procedures on an impressive scale. This work is actually beginning now in India, but I think countries of the BIMSTEC, all of us face the same problem. And as ICT enters more and more into the functioning of all sectors of the economy, it's a crying need for all of us. And we can look at the possibility of BIMSTEC cooperation in this region. The other related issue is the standoff between the US and China on the rollout of 5G technologies. It is important for all of us that we should not get caught up in this technology Cold War. And we need to take informed decisions that meet our economic, technology, and security interests. I think it is relevant to consider that unlike 1G, 2G, 3G, and 4G, a very large part of the 5G network is going to be software-driven. And this is an area in which all our countries in the region have considerable skills. Security-related think tanks in BIMSTEC countries, I think, should pay some attention to this as a potential area of fruitful cooperation. A final point which I would like to make is the importance of follow-up on decisions and recommendations which are generated at such conferences, so that some of the really good ideas generated can get acceptance and further implementation. Your conference may like to develop some mechanism for this. I think there was a suggestion at the earlier conference of collaborative mechanisms with other like-minded organizations like the Indian Ocean Rim Association. I think that's a very good idea. And I think this organization could also imbibe from the IORA, which is an organization of longer standing, methodologies of trying to take forward areas of cooperation initiatives. With these few words, ladies and gentlemen, I wish your conference fruitful deliberation. And as all of the speakers before me have said, I'm sure that this will feed into the already vigorous momentum that BIMSTEC has generated across all its mechanisms. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your insights and recommendations. They will form a key component of the deliberations in the two-day dialogue. May I now request the authors of Sea of Collective Destiny, Bay of Bengal and BIMSTEC, a VIF publication, Dr. Vijay Sakhuja and Commodore Suman Banerjee, and Mr. Rajan Arya, publisher, Pentagon Press, to join us on the dais for the release of the book. May I now request the BIMSTEC Secretary General, Ambassador Islam, to release the book. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now have a short break. I request all our international delegates and speakers to join us for a group photo next to Swami Vivekananda statue, while our other esteemed participants can join us for tea at the porch on the ground floor. We will resume the dialogue proceedings at 11:30 with the first session.